window of opportunity to grasp intimacy between optimism and doubt, the appreciation of gestures. Through the hall of the monastery, within the center stood my adversary, Mr. Judgmental, entrenched in disparaging disposition, fueled by indignation, with his haughty appearance. I already knew the type of foe I was attached to, constantly emitting negative radiation, spewing dishonorable rhetoric, brandishing a sword of exceptionalism. And then there was me in all of my splendor. I wasn't the greatest dancer, but I definitely had a body that was shame Adonis, wielding the dagger of equanimity, vanquishing any negativity within the facility, relinquishing depravity to bring about tranquility, which felt like elegant features and beautiful soliloquy. Rapturous women tending to you tenaciously, ass poking out but gracefully, but unexpectedly despondency arisen insidiously, affecting my presence of mind, immersing me in tumultuous times, imprinting me with a dystopian mind, keeping me confined to the prison of conceptual imputation, restricting visitation from Mrs. Jubilation. But ever so often I would get a whiff of her essence and her fragrance, only to be reminded of my bondage and enslavement. With luck, Mr. Escapism would impart a sliver of entertainment. But before the grips of despair could take hold, a sudden surge of energy plunged forward. I stood there paralyzed as this otherworldly figure took shape, trembling, shivering, quivering, quake. A man materializes in magnificent garb, displaying a magical, metaphysical, mystic ball. Young man, you shouldn't be so fearful, the man said with his dignified mahogany complexion. In order to subdue fear, you must be fearless. Stop identifying with destructive emotions. You that nigga. His words resonated with me. From out of nowhere, a surge of energy swept over me. Behold, the faculty of fortitude. You can harness this power by changing your attitude and practicing gratitude. Fluidity stems from consistency. The kingly gentleman handed me the esoteric scroll of vehemence. As soon as my fingertips touched the parchment, I was energetically thrusted into the interior of creative bliss, which felt like mid-condition's pretty brown eyes, soothing hues, egoless humans harmonizing harmoniously. Gorgeous women that weren't engulfed in hypergamy, men that weren't submerged in hood ideology, an environment that was aligned with my spirit, freedom. An exuberant young man approached me. Nice little spot, isn't it? I nodded my head with a slight smirk. Absolutely. Dante, I'm going to be completely honest. I know all about you. You're very resilient. You shouldn't be so hard on yourself. I know under the right conditions, you would have handled things better. Release the grip of resentfulness. Life is unpredictable. Learn to adapt. Seek your vibratory match. Stop stressing. We're all entangled within the same dreams. Addicts addicted to the same fiends. He patted me on my shoulder. When I turned my head, he was nowhere to be seen. He just vanished. The young man's words comforted me. Melodic music gushed from the stage. The band was putting on a great performance. Art from the Harlem Renaissance smothered the wall. The people were animated. They exemplified felicity. Through my extrasensory perception, I felt someone staring. I looked across the room. It was a stunning brown-skinned woman, regal. I could tell she was fed just by the way she was seated. Under normative circumstances, I would have been plagued by anxiety, but it was something comforting about this environment that stifled my inner turmoil, that gave me enough gusto to converse with the young lady. I was just at my family gathering. They were mad at me. They told me to bring some cinnamon and you over here. She had the type of smile that would have you in the woods with some binoculars. Dante, I extended my hand. She reciprocated. Intimacy. What a beautiful name. Thank you. When I was with her, I was immersed in nirvana, connected like flora and fauna. Her warmth was insurmountable. The music switched to a different tune. She started dancing in her seat, becoming more jovial with every beat. So what do you call this place? I said loudly over the blaring music. The Edification Center. We learn how to develop emotional intelligence. You see that over there? Yeah, that's called an IAC, Internal Alchemy Capsule. She directed my attention towards this enormous machinery. Let's check it out. She grabbed my hand and guided me through the crowd. She waved at one of her friends with a joyous smile. We arrived at the capsule. Cool designs embellished the exterior, similar to the designs you would see on a NASCAR. Very sophisticated tech. So basically what you do is, you get inside the capsule, Put the transmutation modulator on your cranium, fasten your harness, and place the thumb on the launch pad for about 3 seconds. The goal is to help the individual transmute negative emotions into positive energy, initiating psychological growth. So basically, weightlifting for the mind. She chuckled, something like that. I couldn't help but notice her shape. She was very curvaceous, slim thick. So do you want to try it out? Sure. At that moment, a beetle landed on Intimacy's shoulder and then flew elsewhere. I climbed into the capsule, fastened my harness, placed the transmutation modulator on my cranium, placed my thumb on the launch pad for about 3 seconds. Purple neon lights filled the inside of the capsule, followed by the voice of Intimacy. Are you comfortable? Yes. Great. If you're feeling overwhelmed and want to parachute to safety, just use the keyword faith. Application instilled. The capsule shuddered. I was tossed into the simulation greeted by the reactive mind, engrossed in perilous death within the pitfalls of irrational fury and the clutches of vicissitude. Destructive emotions alter my attitude. Such a paradoxical villain, a cynical parasite, a relentless heathen of disastrous doom that dwell in the allegorical tomb. Bypassing the fortress of sentimentalities, I was bombarded with an agglomeration of colors. Awe-stricken, I basked in the wonderment. You always listening to respond. You always listening to get triggered. The malevolent voice echoed. Fuck them niggas, Mac 11, chop a nigga like Valerian Steel. Encouraging destructive behavior under the guise of resiliency. Y'all niggas ain't really real. Y'all niggas ain't really street. You adapted to cooler climates, but I stayed with the heat, said in menacing echo. The voice of Intimacy chimed in. Things are going to get a little intense. Control your thoughts, control your mind, and most importantly, control your emotions. My body jolted. I bellowed, sweating profusely, tormented by traumatizing emotions that was buried deep in the subconscious mind, resurfacing. The anguish. I gripped the arm of the chair tightly, bombarded by demonic imagery. I was seeing red. Evil spirits swirled. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was staring at my own grave, overwhelmed by this sunken feeling in the pit of my stomach, encumbered and afflicted by emotions, flustered and viscerally enmeshed in self-loathing, berated by devilish belief. They are ashamed of you. They don't want to be seen with you. Nobody's going to validate your humanity. You're not good enough for social acceptability. You're never going to be immersed in wholesome escapism. You will never be fully you. This is America. Only the strong survive. Your value is only contingent on your utility for financial gain. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, said condescendingly. The reactive mind started chasing after me with a chainsaw like a psychopathic barbarian, almost striking me, but I moved just in the nick of time. The sneaky bastard conjured up the spirit of cognitive dissonance. I was hit, on the ground weak. I could feel my body shutting down. Desperately crawling for safety, fearful, I could taste death, the agony. But before the drag of acrimony could take captive my mind, body, and soul, I thought back to what the kingly gentleman said. Change your attitude by practicing gratitude. So I visualized the katana of appreciation and proceeded to pierce through the fog of degradation, conjuring the love of alleviation through the process of self-actualization, which ultimately led to my emancipation. The feeling of serenity aligned with my being. Intimacy's voice reverberated in joyous tone. Now you got the hang of it. Great job. I lunged forward, striking the antagonistic protagonist. It was early in the morning. I was at my grandmother's trailer. She lived right up the road from me and my siblings. We used to call her Grandma up the path. I remember watching the raindrops fall as I stood by the screen door, and how she would unplug all the electronics during a thunderstorm. Her and Mary Sue would be in the kitchen chewing the fat, snapping greens. I will always cherish those moments. I kept striking with eager fluidity, engulfed in benevolent rage. With every legion I was rewiring the circuitry of the brain. Drenched in dopamine, I experienced a love that was seldom seen. Felt a presence that was fully me. Entrenched in love that was truly us. Unity with divinity colluding with serenity, colliding with symmetry. Thud, the reactive mind collapsed to the ground, leaking fluids. I was in a temporary altered state of consciousness swamped by hallucinations. The next time you go to the store, can you get some Fruity Pebbles? Russell Wilson said, wearing denim biker shorts. I felt like Smokey when he was in the pigeon coop, surrounded by shadow people and night hags. What's wrong with me? I howled, worried. I kept rehashing old memories. I sighed, must be some sort of side effect. Fretful, encumbered by paralysis, I forced awakening. The purple neon lights turned vibrant green. The capsule crawled to a standstill. I was fully conscious, looked around the capsule, unfastened my harness, got up and clambered out. Met by harsh winds and sand dunes, I trudged for hours through the rugged terrain, irritable, hungry, and exhausted, thinking to myself, I was just at this delightful place with the most beautiful woman, and now I'm somewhere in the desert feeling depressed and licentious with a scarcity mentality. Beleaguered, but I kept walking. It was boiling hot, oven-like. The eagle of a variance loomed above like an engorged horsefly, salivating at the thought of me becoming idle. I heard the howling of wild animals. It must have been a figment of my imagination, but I could have sworn I seen a young child on a hilltop waving me along. I wiggled my head and flickered my eyelids. What the fuck? Said in frustration. I guess this is how my life ends, huh? I lambasted, staring at the sky above. It was getting dark, but before I lost all hope, I saw this luminescent orb in the distance with its radiant brilliance. Slowly started to hover over me to get my attention. The light proceeded to move forward, guiding me, leading me to a place that felt like heaven. Abundance and accolades, that's how the road were paved. Grasping that thing that doesn't distinguish between good and evil, togetherness is what built cathedrals. This place was impressive, paradoxical even. Skyscrapers defied gravity, mutants, aliens, and advanced humans moseyed around. This must be some sort of future utopia. Dark clouds began forming. Creatures kept manifesting in and out of different dimensions. The utopian city smelled like muscadimes. My stomach began to grumble. How are you doing, sir? I'm doing okay. They seemed friendly. I could hear a large crowd in the distance chanting. It was inscrutable. Anxiety insidiously infiltrated my formality. The orb led me to the gigantic Colosseum, more glorious than the amphitheater, filled with salacious women in scandalous clothing. Horns blared starchly. I entered the arena, the gates closed behind me. I rushed over towards the water fountain and quickly started consuming liquids. One of the guards aggressively pulled me by my shirt and started dragging me towards the middle of the Colosseum. The ground shook. Guards transporting bodies that were beaten and battered to a pulp, some with their organs protruding from their corpse. All you could smell was rotten flesh. Buzzards flocked, feasting. Thunder rumbled from the sky above, electric crackles. The women in the stands couldn't care less. They wanted to be entertained, trying to quench their thirst by watching innocent men being ravenously dismantled, while propping up men that displayed destructive characteristics. The heartless looked onward with a heedless glare. I lifted my head and there stood this tyrant, sadistic, hideous, ferocious, perfidious beast. Free news to everyone who likes and retweets me. #squirt. Before I knew it, the grizzly beast launched a thirst trap. I deserve the world, so I'm gonna give it to myself. #thickums. I was almost devoured by sexual gratification, bombarded with lustful content and meaningless relationships. I was in a low vibrational state. All I could think about was intimacy. I started running. The ghastly beast let out a devastating, destabilizing bird call that left me paralyzed. The ghoulish beast got me in her clutches and began thrashing me. She flung me to the center of the Colosseum. In pain, I summoned enough strength to visualize and manifest the mercurial elixir. Gulped it down. I was filled with virility. She tilted her head back and let out a monstrous roar. Pussy so fat the doctor said I needed to lose pussy fat. #insulin.